Do you know what legacy means? It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
I have joined you for another episode. Yes.
Well, that's very kind of you. I would expect nothing less.
You have joined me for another episode. Is to be
well. I've joined you in the Sunshine State. I can confirm that much. We're sitting across from each other.
That's right.
It's the first time we've done this in
quite some time.
I would say at least half a year. Now, remember, there was a period of time where I briefly lived with you.
That's right.
It was fun. But I went on to grander adventures up in the northeastern region of the United States. But spring break came upon me, and I decided, I'm tired of fucking 30-degree weather. I would like some 80-degree weather in my system, and boy, I've been getting a good amount of that, and let's just say no regrets to my decision. I'm very, very content with my decision-making process for spring break. Having a great time down here. I've been down here for a few days. You've unfortunately been busy working, selling the cars, but at the same time, we've made time to watch some Game of Thrones, haven't we?
We have. We've completed season 2.
And that's exactly why we're here. We're talking... Yeah, all the foghorns are going off. What about the drums?
That's it.
Yes.
Good things in store.
Very, very many good things in store, yes. Very excited to talk about Game of Thrones Season 2. Of course, this is a continuation of our... bonus episode series on the entirety of Game of Thrones in the lead up to the final season dropping later in 2019. Very exciting.
Side note, while we sip on some vintage 2015 Game of Thrones themed wine from the Seven Kingdom Wines in Hopland, California.
I mean, you can't get more legit than that if you ask me.
It's a blended red. It's very nice.
It is. That is quite nice. I have to agree. I mean,
shout out
to
Stephen
we're drinking wine.
And Haley.
Yes. Big shout out to them. We're drinking wine. We're drinking Game of Thrones wine while we talk about Game of Thrones. I mean, we don't have wine skins to drink the wine out of, but we have made some preliminary research into this concept of the wine skins, and maybe on a future episode we can put that plan into action. But that's neither here nor there. We'll save that for our many future bonus episodes on Game of Thrones that we're gonna have, because we're here to talk about season 2, and that's what we're here. So we gotta save the rest for later. So on the subject of bonus episodes, as I mentioned, again, we're doing this big long series on Game of Thrones, probably over, I guess, realistically the next few months. I think we're targeting roughly a couple weeks to grind out each season and then record an episode for our listeners and our supporters on Patreon. So on the note of Patreon, how that works for anyone unfamiliar who hasn't heard our spiel that we give on, I feel like, probably every episode since we started our Patreon up over a year ago. Well, it's very simple. $2 a month gets you access to all of our bonus episodes, and you get early access to all of our regular episodes. So it's a pretty great deal. Again, $2 a month. We ask very little of you. It's just to kind of help us cover costs. And the easiest way to do that is to head to our website. It's watchreviewrepeat.com. Go to the premium tab up in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. That'll redirect you to Patreon. And all you got to do is
follow the prompts.
Follow the prompts. Very, very simple. And that way you, yes, I'm talking to you, listener, whatever your name. I know your name, but it's not important. But
we could know your name if you were a Patreon subscriber.
I know your name, and it's important because that will allow you the opportunity to watch and or rewatch Game of Thrones along with us, and then and enjoy these seasons with us, and enjoy these season discussions that we're going to be having. So I hope everyone had a chance to listen to our Season 1 coverage. We tried to structure it in a way that it was friendly for folks that had not watched Season 1. We included a pretty, I think, extensive section on both A Song of Ice and Fire and on Season 1 in general, just to get people up to speed.
Broad strokes.
Broad strokes, exactly. And we're going to do a little bit of broad strokes here. I will say that, but I can also say that I think we're going to be spending a lot of time in the nitty-gritty details, the spoilers of Season 2, because, well, there is a lot to talk about. I think that's a safe statement to make. So, without further ado, I believe we can get into Game of Thrones Season 2. So let me set the stage for my friends listening to this episode. I'll set the stage for you, Andrew. Don't you worry. I know you just watched Season 2 mostly with me, but I'll get you ready. So Game of Thrones Season 2 aired April to June of 2012, a good almost 7 years ago.
Holy hell.
Right.
7 hells!
7 hells! 7 gods? 7 gods? The new gods, is there 7 of them?
Yeah, that's right. Whatever.
Anyway,
yeah.
They're no gods of tits and wine, as we know.
They don't answer my prayers.
Well, okay. Well, maybe pray to the old gods or the Lord of Light, perhaps. Anyway, there's too much lore happening for the people who are like, well, I don't know what's going on. I thought you were going to set up Season 2 and not drop shit on me. I apologize. Showrunners, of course, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss returning for this, and massive cast. Only got bigger. To be fair, they lost a few cast members from Season 1, but they have a few more added to the long, extensive list that I'm about to read to you. So, starring in Game of Thrones Season 2, we have Mr. Peter Dinklage, Lena Headey, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Michelle Fairley, Emilia Clarke, Aidan Gillen, Ian Glenn, Kit Harington, Charles Dance, Liam Cunningham, Isaac Hempstead Wright, Richard Madden, Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, Alfie Allen, John Bradley, Jack Gleason, Rory McCann, Stephen Delane, Carice Van Houten, Natalie Dormer, James Cosmo, Jerome Flynn, Conleth Hill, and Sybil Kikili. So, I'm going to do what I did last time.
All right.
If you recall, I tried to set the stage as much as I can with just giving a general plot outline of kind of where the realm, where Westeros, and maybe the lands across the Narrow Sea, where everything's kind of at as of the beginning of Season 2. So again, this is naturally going to cover some Season 1 spoilers, and so I would say if you have not watched any Game of Thrones at all, maybe
it's a questionable place to be.
Questionable place to be. Go listen to our Season 1 episode. I think that's the right place to be, and then come back. Because you're going to enjoy that one. So, of course, you're going to want to move on to this one.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so Season 2 spans several months on a world where the seasons last for years at a time. The Seven Kingdoms are at war, with the King in the North, Robb Stark, fighting to win independence for his people and those of the Riverlands. Robb decides that he must win the allegiance of the fiercely independent Ironborn to his cause, and sends his best friend Theon Greyjoy to treat with his father, who is hatching plans of his own. Meanwhile, Joffrey Baratheon holds the Iron Throne with the backing of the powerful House Lannister, but his uncle Renly has also claimed the throne with the support of House Tyrell, whose armies are much larger. As they struggle for the throne, Tyrion Lannister arrives in King's Landing to take matters in hand, only to face opposition from his scheming sister Cersei, now the Queen Regent. However, there is another faction entering the picture. Stannis Baratheon, Robert's younger brother and Renly's older brother, has also claimed the Iron Throne for himself. A proven battle commander and veteran of several wars, Stannis is known to be utterly without mercy to his enemies and will do what is right, even if it destroys him. Advising him is Melisandre, an enigmatic priestess from the east who believes Stannis is meant for a greater destiny, and Sir Davos Seaworth, an honest and honorable man uneasy with the shifts in power at Stannis' court. Far to the east, Daenerys Targaryen has hatched the only 3 dragons in the world. Eventually they will grow into terrifying monsters capable of destroying cities at her command, but for now they are still hatchlings and vulnerable. With her Khalasar gone, Daenerys and her small band of followers must find a way across a forbidding wasteland and find new allies to support her claim to the Iron Throne. In the distant north, the Night's Watch has mounted an expedition beyond the Wall, searching for missing rangers and investigating rumors of wildlings gathering in the mountains. For Jon Snow, this will be a rite of passage as he is asked to make difficult choices for the realm and for himself.
God damn. Where credit the synopsis.
Yes, full credit to the Game of Thrones wiki, who did an excellent job.
One hell of a synopsis.
Painting a picture for season 2. I think what we'll find is the more seasons that go on, the longer they will probably be, because that was definitely longer than the season 1 one. But
that was excellent, though.
Alas, that is where we begin with season 2. So, enough of me blabbering. It's time for Andrew to talk on the wonderful microphone. Sitting across from me, we're going to have a nice conversation together. And we're going to begin with just a general impressions of season 2 without straying too far into major spoiler details. I want to ask you, season 2, does it live up to season 1? Does it build on certain things? I mean, just as a general. Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, that's it.
But
it does.
Just generally speaking, I mean, where are you at with season 2?
I think season 2 has incredible high moments. And I think it expands on a lot of the characters that didn't get a lot of screen time in the first season, and it expands on them in major ways. I think that, I think when there's one particular intense moment. I mean, everything boils to a point, and then it happens, and then the fallout of all those events at the end of the season is amazing. It really has a strong follow through from season 1. I don't know how to describe it, because it's hard to describe it in generalities, because it's so much. It's very dependent on everything that came before. It's a natural progression of the characters, and I think those characters continue to grow in big major ways. There are minor characters that are going to be no longer with us, and you find yourself very, very much attached to those minor characters. At least I did. There's a couple of events that happened, and a couple of people stepping up that were once minor characters. They step up in major ways to become major characters to the big players of the Game of Thrones, I think. And
well, and I think that's. I mean, I talked about this in that very, very well written, very long synopsis. There's effectively a power void with. I mean, we have a king on the Iron Throne, but as we talked about, I mean, the War of Five Kings is in full force, and it's so you see all these kind of, as you mentioned, some minor characters kind of coming to the forefront, and some new characters getting introduced that had been mentioned in season 1, but hadn't really been given. I mean, they hadn't been cast obviously for anyone to play them in season 1, and now they're here, major characters, major presences in season 2. So it's interesting because it feels. It's not just a power void, I think. I mean, it's a power void in terms of the plot, and absolutely, we're going to dive well into
just pure
into more
chaos
detail.
Among the events that are happening. It's
right, but
chaos.
I also think, interestingly enough, from just like if you take a step back, it's kind of a void of you lose your star power from season 1.
Right.
Your Sean Bean is gone. You have that one anchor character, I think, from season 1. So naturally, it becomes, I think, even more than it already was, it becomes an ensemble piece.
That's right. Yeah,
and it always was that to a degree. I mean, it wasn't just the
but
story
even
of Ned
more
Stark.
so now.
But I feel like Ned Stark was this perfect anchor character to root you in this world. Like, he was the character you rooted for, and his downfall was the ultimate lesson to, I guess, as is the case with the show, to the watcher of the show, saying, "Hey, this ain't your grandpappy's television show." You know what I mean? Like there are very real consequences for making bad decisions in this show. And when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
That's it.
And as we learned, that latter option is a very real possibility. So yeah, it's interesting because I feel like even though like it doesn't feel like they added a lot of star power in terms of like the cast, but I feel like everyone is still exceptionally well cast.
Yeah.
Like obviously people that had inhabited their characters for, that first season only feel more natural in their roles, like they feel more comfortable. And obviously, in the case of like your Sophie Turners, your Maisie Williams, they're growing with the character. They're literally growing with the characters. And I feel like we talked a little bit about that on maybe the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's interesting to kind of rewatch it and to grow with the characters and to kind of see them, grow up as well.
Right.
But it's when you actually go and go back and rewatch it, it's even more apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see their character arcs unfold. And we still have that omniscient viewpoint of, well, we know what is to come in
right,
seasons.
right.
And we're not going to get into that here, at least not intentionally. We're trying to steer clear of that so that anyone that is watching along with us or really watching along with us for the first time, that way they're not super spoiled on anything. Because where's the fun in that? But yeah. I mean, I felt like the new additions to the cast fit right in. They fit like a glove, I would say. I thought everyone was exceptionally well cast, played their characters to a T, and I felt like, the plot directions are interesting. I feel like the War of Five Kings is just a really, really interesting story direction because it's like I said, it's chaos in the world and it's everyone vying for power, and it's people do nasty things when they're at war, and we see a lot of nasty things unfold throughout this season. I felt like the production, taking a step back, I feel like the production values, it feels like season 1 was kind of this almost quaint kind of thing, and like they really stepped their game up,
ramped it up, right?
And I think that's probably going to be true going forward with a lot of the seasons. Is like, well, we have dragons now, and so they have to literally, anytime the dragons are in the scene, I mean, they spend a lot of time like, put the dragons in the cage. We don't need to see them for this because we don't have time. We don't have the time and money to animate them right now. But when they do let certain things be on the screen, I felt like even like the dragons for CG that's now going on 7 years old, pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's not pitch perfect or anything like that, but it looks pretty damn. I mean, it's TV CGI, from 7 years ago. Like I feel like usually TV like CG is like, even like the Flash, for example, like that's a low budget CG, and sometimes it looks fine, but then there's other times you're like,
real bad.
Ooh, that looks bad. Like even the moment it aired, it looked bad. And I felt like this probably looked fucking astonishing at the time that it came out, and now looking back on it,
you're not detracted from the
that's probably the most obvious use of CGI I could. I guess not necessarily, but I feel like in most other cases it's CGI augmenting probably physical practical effects.
Right, and I think that's one thing
seamless overall.
I think that's one thing they do really good is they bridge that gap between CG and practical effects.
Yeah,
they make the most of their budget.
Because like a lot of the like city backgrounds, like cityscape stuff, like that's all CG stuff.
Sure.
Because I mean, if it wasn't, I would fucking go visit everywhere. But Game of Thrones theme park, when's that happening?
But they do. Yeah. I mean, there's times I've seen that they were shot in certain portions of Italy and stuff where I mean they do a really good job of kind of bridging those gaps.
They do a good job of transforming what could seem like familiar type settings into believable ones, but ones that feel like this fantastical world, this realm of Westeros and stuff.
Making the most of their budget for sure.
But yeah, and it's crazy. I'm looking at this now and it says, the entire budget for season 2 was $69 million, which, if I came into $69 million, I'd be sitting real fucking pretty. Don't get me wrong. Sure. But at the same time, like that,
for what they achieved on $69 million.
I think we could think of one episode alone where we're like, yeah, they spent $70 million on that.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, how do they find the money for everything else? The other 9 episodes, so it's, I don't know, it's really, really impressive.
So these are practical effects.
Exactly. Yeah. It's probably a lot of pre-production and good planning and meticulously thought out kind of
good time and effort.
Because to be fair, I guess perhaps they could be recycling sets and stuff from season 1. Maybe that doesn't get factored into the budget or anything like that. But it's all really great. I think broad strokes production values are up there. I think technically, this is it's the natural evolution, the natural escalation from season 1.
Now,
and also in terms of plot too.
To this point, we have not seen anything like we've seen in Game of Thrones. in regards to that one particular episode.
Right, the scale jumps considerably because actually, yeah, that's a good point because the first season did it cut around what could have been these massive,
right,
scale type events like battles or anything like that. It was like usually like someone draws their sword like, oh shit's about to go down, and then cut to the next scene.
It's
and
much more of a character piece.
It's fine.
Not that this isn't a character piece because it definitely is, but there was spectacle in this one, whereas I think the season one there was lack.
It feels. In some ways, it feels like an evolution from a TV show to fucking many movies. Like
correct.
Hour-long movies. Like you get an hour-long movie, for 10 weeks in a row, or whatever their airing schedule is, and that from this point on, I don't think that changes. I think that again, I think they just ramp it up, and they probably threw more and more money into the show as the show went on, and especially again as the needs of the show probably demanded it. But this one. You get the taste of it, and it's satisfying.
It's quite good.
It's quite good. So, any other general impressions? Are you ready to move into our spoiler talk on this?
Let's move into the spoiler talk.
Okay, so just to conclude that on my end, if you're still listening to this, and you haven't listened to our season 1 episode, well, go watch season 1. I can tell you right now, there's not a drop off from season 1 to season 2. Personal preferences or whatever, but I feel like they
it literally takes
and of course,
place.
I didn't say this, and I maybe I should have said this earlier. This is in large part based off of George R.R. Martin, the man himself's work, and he actually wrote an episode at least in this,
right? One that I noticed,
episode.
Anyways, yeah,
right. So we owe full credit to George R.R. Martin for penning A Clash of Kings, the second book in the Song of Ice and Fire series, of which this season large of its inspiration is from that. I mean, I don't think it's as quite of a close adaptation as the first season of Game of Thrones is
to this point
to a Game of Thrones.
The lines begin to be blurred.
You see that absolutely,
books,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think probably through season 3 is when it's still pretty close with some divergences, and there's definitely changes made here and there, and then like season 4 kind of just it's still close, but
they start to take royalties, right?
Yeah, definitely take a little bit of liberties with everything. So yes, of course, watch Game of Thrones. That's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line.
That's why we're here. That's why we
join the human race. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, this is absolutely a human race type project you have to look forward to. I was just telling you this. This is just a general side musing. I was telling you this because we were lounging on the couch. We cranked up the volume quite loud as we were watching Game of Thrones, and the intro comes on. And I just turned to you and I was like, "This is a really good fucking show." Isn't it?
Yeah, it's really.
It felt like it seemed like probably like a yeah. You're right. It is, but it was more just me trying to like you know what I have
at one point you said you underplay it.
I underplay it. Like I think of like my favorite shows, and I'm like, yeah, I like Game of Thrones, and then I'm like, well, it's got problems here and there, and that's true. I think that's probably true more of the later seasons than the 2 we've watched or rewatched so far, but it's really fucking good.
It's really fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, it's through season 2. I'm like, this is some good shit right here.
I didn't even want to record the podcast.
This man was just like, you want to watch season 3 right now, and I'm like, I mean, kind of, but
we need to record the shit.
We owe it to our listeners.
We have responsibilities.
Very big responsibilities.
What's the quote from the Game of Thrones season 2? If you don't follow your oaths, how do you expect your bannerman to, or whatever, something like that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, something like I know. Yeah, was it Rob? Rob talks about that?
Rob talking to his Mama
Stark.
Mama Stark. Mm-hmm.
That's right. I know what you're talking about. But I think it's time. To talk some spoilers. Mm-hmm. So, full spoilers for Game of Thrones season 2, and I mean full spoilers for Game of Thrones season 2.
Going deep,
because we could be here all night trying to dissect this. I think what we're going to try to do is not what we did on the first episode with season 1. I think we admitted as much that we were kind of just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. I think we're going to try to keep this I think we ended up kind of talking about characters a little bit, and I think we're going to largely dip into that, and I feel like that will inform a lot of our conversations upon, because it really talks about the evolution of the characters, the major arcs of the season, how it all comes to a head and everything. So I think that's going to be the way to do it. But is there anything you want to get off your chest right away, like season 2, like I don't want to wait to talk about this character. I want to talk about this shit right fucking now. Is
right
there
now.
Anything that comes to mind? And he just I've been burning to say this the entire time.
Blackwater.
Yeah, I mean that's what's on both of our minds. There's no surprises there.
Blackwater is incredible.
We've been talking about it without directly talking about it this entire episode of like, yeah, the production values went up a little bit, huh?
And it was an incredible moment in the book.
Mm-hmm, right.
And to see it realized on screen was absolutely ridiculous. Even if you don't have an investment in the books, right? Because, I mean, there is something to be said that you read this, you experienced it on pages and stuff, and it was an incredible thing that happened. But to see it on screen and portrayed the way it was portrayed, even if without investment, it's so incredibly intense. And I think this is a good time to segue into Tyrion, because a person that was literally staying and sleeping with the pigs in season 1 is now protecting the Red Keep from Stannis, and in a major way. I mean, he lit that fucker on fire. It exploded green and annihilated half of an armada. I mean, it's an incredible season. And then he flanks them and everything else, and ultimately he is saved, by his father. But I mean, what an episode, man! So intense. And then it really, really shows some true colors on Cersei. I think you see her kind of vulnerable. You see her; she's gonna fixing to fucking poison her kid and put her kid down. And I mean, it's just and she's really just taking a shit in Sansa.
Well, she does that a lot, to be fair.
She does do that a lot,
but probably even more so because she certainly had more than her fair share of wine.
Yeah,
wine.
She's just an utter bitch. But anyways, yeah, so Blackwater. Blackwater was an incredible deal.
Yeah, and we watched it earlier today before recording this. Like, I've been looking forward to Blackwater. I remember Blackwater when it fucking came out, when it aired, and I was just, my God, I was just so blown away. I think I might be wrong in this, and I'm not going to look it up because it's fine. I mean, we know we're trustworthy, so of course it's true. But I remember hearing that was the explosion in Blackwater was like the largest explosion, at least at that time, like ever done on television.
Is that right?
Which wouldn't surprise me because it was a big fucking explosion. I mean, I assume
was it green? It was put green. It was green in post. Is that right?
I think it was probably largely practical, as like just this massive stunt, and then kind of colored up, right?
Okay.
And post would be my guess of how,
because that is a massive fucking explosion.
And if you do not have a proper sound set up to experience that,
we turn the shit up so loud and vibrate the seats.
Oh, it was great. It's the way. I mean, how loud do you think that fucking explosion would be? God, everyone in that every character in there would be shitting their pants. If you were on one of those ships that got, if you were Davos,
if you were fucking Stannis,
you were Stannis. Yeah, Stannis is just like, I'm rethinking this whole plan real quick.
Fuck.
Yeah, man, it was
intense.
That was
the explosion alone. Which, to be fair, the explosion alone in the books was described as a fucking like Armageddon level event. I mean, it was.
I feel like it
was a big fucking deal.
Literally, pretty much decimated Stannis' entire fleet,
right?
Which they describe as like this massive force, kind of throughout the show, of just like, well, he's gonna fuck us because he's got. Number. He's got superior.
He's got all these
numbers
fucking people. He's
by a considerable margin.
Proven commander. Yeah, we're worried.
Stannis is the motherfucking Manus.
Yeah,
and he's coming. He's coming to King's Landing to take the throne for himself.
And Tyrion alone.
Well, yeah.
Tyrion strategized that shit and took him out. Fucking Tyrion, man.
Yeah, Tyrion, I think is the real star of the show for season 2. I mean. Well, we'll talk about who won the season, and he has to be a contender. I don't know if he won though, because he was winning. I think he wins through. He was
winning.
He gets a lot of wins, but I don't know if he secures the final win per se. But yeah, this is, I think. I mean, I think this feels like Tyrion is now your Ned Stark. He's your lead character. He's easily one of the most likable characters on the show, no doubt about that. And I think that he sees a lot of real growth, and you really see him kind of come into his own, like embracing the role as the acting hand of the king, and the way that he, as you mentioned,
it's called like not Varys, but the fuck am I thinking of? The bald one.
Varys.
Yes, he actually talks to Tyrion on the battlements. Is that the word? On the top of the castle when they're preparing, and he talks about how you enjoy the Game of Thrones, you enjoy it, and you're good at it. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't expect to be good at it, but I am coming into my own with it." I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I mean,
I'm on the wine.
Yes, we chalk everything up to the wine.
Fuck the water. Bring me wine.
That's it.
So, but yeah, I mean, mostly what I was just saying is, we see his relationship with Shay kind of develop throughout the season, and we see there's a real tenderness there, a real kind of emotionality to it, more than just, this whore or whatever that, that he met at the end of season 1. Like there's a real connection there. There's a real, he strives to protect her as much as possible, and
after the Battle of Blackwater, he's very exposed, and he kind of makes a couple of dickish comments to her, and he's immediately called out on it, and that felt very tender and very earned. That whole exchange between Shay and him after that battle, I thought that was really good.
Right. So, I mean, Tyrion, I think, even if he's not the winner, I think he's the star of the show for me, because he's just too much damn fun to watch. Nice. Peter Dinklage, man, just owns that role.
He does.
He's so great. But we've got lots of other characters. Do you have any other thoughts on Tyrion before we dance along to some others?
No. Thought he owned it.
He definitely owned it. So, you want to talk some returning characters? You want to talk some new characters? What do you want to do?
Let's dive into the new characters. We got some new people here, man.
We got some new characters. You want to talk? Let's talk about Stannis the Manus.
Okay,
because,
he's one of the most important.
I think he's the biggest new character,
right?
Because, well, I mean, I guess he could
have taken the Iron Throne,
and I mean, I felt this is somewhat jumping ahead, I guess, a little bit, but I've always until the later seasons, I always felt firmly on Team Stannis myself. I don't know if you've ever identified with Team Stannis yourself.
Oh, well, I mean, he is the rightful heir, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I think they kind of point out the stupidity of it. I was like, well, did Robert really have a claim? Was he, like the rightful heir means as much as you really want it to mean, I suppose, which I guess is kind of the point of...
You know what I don't like about Stannis? I actually don't like Stannis at all.
Okay.
Stannis is a person that he's so consumed with the confines of the law of the land that he becomes a monster himself. I mean, at one point he assassinates his brother using fucking shadow monster.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dick move, yeah.
He abandons the gods of his people. And adopts this other one because it whispers power in his ear. I feel like he almost becomes corrupted by the things that he wants to uphold. He's kind of like a corruption of that mentality, I think.
But on the flip side, you've got shithead Joffrey Baratheon sitting on the phone.
Yeah, fuck
throne,
him.
So who would you rather, really?
I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, this is more just an overall. So there's the 5 kings, right?
Right.
So who do you got to commit yourself to a team. So whose team are you on?
So what do we got? We got the king in the north.
Got the king in the north. I guess he counts. Yeah, you got the king in the north. So we got one. You
got the king beyond the wall.
I don't know if he counts as one of those 5 kings at this point.
Okay, so what do we got? We got king in the north.
I think. Let's do a quick
googs.
We're gonna do a quick Googs just to make sure we have, because there's a lot of kings.
You got the king on the Iron Throne, which is Joffrey, the king of the North.
Yes. All right. So we've
You got
got it.
Stannis. You got Renly.
We got Joffrey. We've got Stannis. We've got Renly. We've got the king of the North, Robb Stark, and we've got the king of the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy.
Yeah, fuck him.
So we're not on. We're not on.
He's not doing anything.
Team Balon Greyjoy. That's probably a fair statement. He's out. So you've got Stannis, Renly, Joffrey, and Robb Stark. Where you at with that? You got to pick one.
Well, the king of the North,
and it's not Joffrey, so we're gonna go ahead and rule Joffrey out.
Yeah, but I mean, the king of the North doesn't want any part of the South. He just wants segregation for himself.
Sure.
You know, so I am very much with the fucking Northern people.
Okay.
I'm very much with the Northern people. They had no intention of going south. The king at the time encouraged them to come down and be a hand. He got fucked, and now I don't want any part with you people. I'm just going to want my people to be by themselves and up there by themselves. Fuck the rest of you. It's nice and simple. It's a nice and simple thing.
Yeah.
I'm about that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
King of the North.
I think Robb is probably the most sympathetic of any of the characters.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I mean, no, I do. I think that's true. So let's put the independence movements aside.
Stannis becomes a fucking.
You got so Joffrey, Stannis, Renly, the people vying for the proper Iron Throne. Let's narrow it down to the war of these three kings. Where are you at with those three?
With those three,
are you Team Renly? You seem like you're a Team Renly right now.
Well, no, no, it has to be Stannis. I just don't like Stannis.
Okay.
I think Stannis.
You agree that he should be
Yes, it's Stan. Okay. Under the natural fall, Joffrey's not a natural born son of the king, and so it falls to Stannis.
Also,
and Stannis,
he's a shithead.
Also, he's a fucking terrible person, right? So naturally, it would be Stannis. But at the same time, it's interesting to see how somebody who was quote unquote honorable during his prime is now being corrupted by outside things, because he does become a fucking at the end of the season he reflects on his actions throughout season 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've fought for your god, who is not my god, but I've adopted your god. I've killed my brother. I killed my brother in the fucking darkness of night, you know, and with fucking black magic.
Shadow baby,
right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's he burnt people alive because they wouldn't adopt his gods at the beginning. You know, he really does become a questionable figurehead, really. I mean, it's kind of the way I look at him. But it is his right to be the king. So
I feel like he's got some badass dialogue throughout the
He does.
season.
He's a very cold-hardened person.
Yeah.
And that's
he's a very different man than old King Bobby B. Rest
and
in peace.
Renly, for sure.
And Renly, yeah. See, the thing with Renly to me is like he's obviously not anything like Joffrey, but it's like that when we meet Renly, when Catelyn goes to see Renly, of like, you know, to form the truce between Renly and Robb, it's
Renly's just kind of a bitch.
Renly's just over there having like a fucking tournament in the middle of nowhere. Because like I'm this pretend king and we're gonna have a fucking play tournament. Like Stannis to me is like, I'm getting shit done. Like I'm gonna fucking sail on King's Landing and take this shit myself. Whereas Renly, obviously, he's prevented an opportunity to do anything like that. But he just feels like he's just playing games,
right?
Like he's just playing fucking games over there.
He
runs away from King's Landing at the end of season 1 because he knows he's gonna get fucked. And
he's disillusioned. Like he's
like he sees the whole thing as a game. Like Stannis. It's almost like Stannis doesn't even want the Iron Throne in some ways.
It's just his by right.
Like he does and he doesn't. Like obviously, I think that like he feels it's he's duty bound to have it, and so he's like, we'll have to do it by whatever measure is necessary.
These are the rules.
Which, as you mentioned, becomes, I guess you could say, perverted by Melisandre and the Lord of Light and such. But yeah, I don't know. I can't be on Team Renly. Fuck. I mean, I like Renly. I think he's a very charming man. He's a very charming character, and like it's super shitty the way he goes out. Like
nobody likes my brother, so I'll be king. No, fuck you.
It's so fucking unceremonious the way he gets killed, and like I feel really bad. Like Brienne, man. Like man, we haven't talked about Brienne at all, but like we'll talk about Brienne for sure. But like, man, that was just like it's a pretty fucking heartbreaking moment. And like there's just a moment of horror with all of them and Catelyn in the tent, and it's just like fuck, like shit just got real. Like that's the point where like this wasn't a fucking game, like
Right.
it was like, he was almost too naive for his own good in some ways. So, I mean, I don't know if he would have made a good king. He would have made a personable king, that's for sure, but I don't know about it. It would have been better than Joffrey.
He would have been naive.
So I think if I'm going to rank him, it sounds like we're kind of somewhat on the same page. We're going to go Stannis, Renly, Joffrey. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Because Joffrey needs to go.
Joffrey's just a fucking human
my
piece
God,
of shit.
He is
He's the worst.
just absolutely the worst character in the world. And not like he's not a bad character, and like he's played really well, but God, man,
He's just a fucking shit.
he's just a shit. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Quote unquote, I believe if I meet my uncle in open battlefield, I will give him a red smile. What a
Yeah,
cunt.
well, let me one up your quote. There's no cure for being a cunt.
Yeah. It's very true. Fucking Braun speaks the truth.
Braun knows what's up. I love Braun. Braun and Tyrion are great too. Braun the fucking in the city guard. That's pretty badass actually. So Stannis is there. He's Stannis the Manus. I agree with your misgivings with Stannis, but I always felt like I guess maybe it was like I think it was like redemption for Ned in some ways, where it's just like Ned went out of his way to make sure that it was the rightful heir to take the throne. He sent the message to Stannis, and Stannis is like, well, fuck me, I'm going to do this. Like, this is my prerogative now. Like, this is my...
That's my duty.
The throne is mine by right. They'll bend the knee or I'll destroy them.
Right.
And like, I'm just like, this dude knows what's up. Like, he feels like a man that...
And he's been shit on his whole life, to be fair.
Yeah, and he talks about like how,
Right.
Bobby B gave fucking Storm's End to Renly. He's like, I did what I was told. I fucking almost starved to death. My wife was starving and shit. And like he's like, but I fucking did what I needed to do. And I was like, this is a man that has discipline. He knows what he's doing. And like, I feel like Stannis would be a rigid king, but I almost feel like after many years with Bobby B, you almost need a Stannis type. Like Ned was kind of that influence, but Ned was too dumb for his own good or too honorable for his own good. And
that just becomes the question. Ned would never, ever, ever align himself with the Red Witch and birth the shadow baby to kill his brother.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? So he's a... I don't... At what ends do you stop? Or create a barrier between you and what's worse, right? What do you become in order to achieve your goals?
Yeah, and I know, I guess, that's probably something that's worth mentioning is like, well, I mean, there are some shades of gray to all of these characters. Even the King in the North makes some certainly questionable decisions at the tail end of this season. So it's not that everyone, I mean, like John's a pretty good character.
They're believable characters.
Like they make bad decisions, but sometimes it's misguided in the sense that, they're like Ned wasn't a Ned was there wasn't a shred of evil in Ned, but he just didn't know how to play the game, and that was his downfall. Right. Where and John's almost kind of like that. He's almost like Ned in that way, where it's like he's sometimes too dumb for his own.
And that's what's really cool is that's what makes Jon Snow one of my favorite characters. Jon Snow is, I feel like he is the most like his father, but he's a bastard, you know what I mean, or he's not, well,
he's not given any respect because of his
title.
That's why he went off to the wall, and I think he has the air of superiority in season 1, and he gets knocked, and like Jon Snow the Steward is kind of Lord Snow, like he kind of gets knocked down from his pedestal, and I think season let's talk about Jon, I guess, season 2, he finally gets his chance to go north of the wall, to be sort of the ranger. He gets paired off with Corrin Halfhand, this legendary ranger.
Even before that.
Yeah, we talked Craster's Keep early in the season.
Right.
It's another thing to talk about.
Craster's Keep, he gets put in his place by Lord Commander. He speaks up, and he's told if you want to lead, you need to learn how to follow.
Right.
Which I think is one of my favorite quotes from the season. And he I don't know. He learns these lessons about duty and what's right and what's questionable, but because he sees a world around him, especially when he goes to Craster's Keep, he gets exposed to a bunch of questionable things, morally wrong things. But his duty to the Night's Watch has to supersede those things.
Right.
And I think as his story in particular progresses, those moral lines become blurred. You know, how do you balance what's right and what your duty is, and where do you find that compass? And I think that's why his story is very interesting, because he has nobody to figure that out with. He has to figure that out for himself, and that's where Ned really shines. It's where his I feel like his backstory with his father and his honorable father, they shine through him, and I really, 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 really like John's character. He's definitely one of my favorite.
Yeah, and again, I think one of the most likable characters
for sure
in the show, and where he goes this season is pretty interesting. You know, as I mentioned, he gets that opportunity to go north of the wall, and he gets into some misadventures of his own.
He's no longer a steward. Now he's beyond the wall with the scouts.
Right.
Half hand, like you said, he's or the Rangers, I'm sorry, not the scouts, but and now he's north of the wall with the Rangers, and he gets called upon to make some hard decisions, and he finds out the consequences of those hard decisions when he doesn't kill the woman, and
the woman, yes.
And Corin Halfhand attempts to make the most of it, listen, make sure they don't die for nothing, and make the most of your decisions, and ultimately he ends up killing Corin, and he's inducted, which look at the very end of season 2, it looks like he's being inducted into the fucking free folk.
Right.
This is the man that killed Corin Halfhand. Yeah,
we see him kind of basically infiltrating the wildlings, and
Now at this point, we don't know if he's infiltrating. We don't know what he's doing. To be fair.
Well, I think we do, because Corin very clearly kind of eggs him on of like, hey, like, this is...
You need to put me down in order for the greater good.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty obvious, because, I mean...
It's a non-spoken thing, though. John's non-spoken understanding.
John knows... He owes no loyalties to the wildlings, really. I mean, like, obviously we see there's something in him that prevents him from killing Egret, when he had really multiple opportunities to do so. It's... I don't know if it's just because she's a very attractive lady, or if it's something more. I don't know exactly. What's driving John in that moment. I'm not entirely sure.
John at one point brings up the fact that John does a good job of questioning the reasons why people do things, which I think is interesting, right? Like,
yeah.
You put up the wall and you decide my people are bad north of the wall. That's no reason to fucking wage a war against my people. And I think he understands that, he sees the flaws in some of those decisions. You're a wildling, so I'm going to kill you. No, that's not appropriate. You're just fucking people. And now that we're talking about it, I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, you're
but
fine.
I actually think it actually builds naturally. I mean, obviously it's kind of the point of why they wrote it this way, but you see the beginning of him questioning everything in Craster's Keep with
right.
Gior telling him, like, well, just because he fucks his own daughters and throws his sons to the White Walkers or whatever, and like that's just the way things are. Like, we need to get valuable information from this guy, and John's like, well, fuck that, like, that's his first inclination, is like, he's
right.
he's throwing his fucking kids in the wild, and like something's grabbing him, like, oh well, that's some pretty fuck shit. And he's right, he's 100% right. There's no doubt in anyone's mind. It's just like, so I think what you're talking about is kind of the natural evolution from that. It's just like, well, maybe I believed in this as like this great institution, but there's some seriously
maybe there was
questionable
black
shit
and white
happening.
before, but it's not black and white. It's gray.
Yeah, there's some questionable things happening, and like this. I was raised to be an honorable man by my honorable father, Ned Stark, and it's just like, well, this doesn't really jive, does it? And so, so you see that kind of forming
and
his actions.
It's worth pointing out that the people beyond north of the wall respect Ned Stark. The wildlings respect Ned Stark. This is the bastard son of Ned Stark, and it grants him his life.
Mm-hmm, right.
You know what I mean? So it's really it's a really interesting dynamic that Ned Stark, his name, carries respect beyond the wall, and it's a testament to his character, I think.
Yeah.
Not as quote unquote character, but like his personal character. Yeah. So anyways, So
yeah, I mean, John, like, again, another super likable character. I think easily fan favorite, and one that I feel like has one of the most interesting arcs. I think we said as much on season 1. Granted, It's been, I guess it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded that, and I haven't had a chance to listen back to it. But I feel like we talked about how not only the fact that John was one of our favorite characters, but also the wall setting was one of our favorite parts of the show in general.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's still true.
It's very much expanded on now.
And it's cool to see, like, to go beyond the wall. Like, it's cool to see the Castle Black and that whole setting, but to see them, like, really go into, like, uncharted territory, it's
they see the first men. They find all those dragon glass.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's very much like a tundra setting.
Yeah.
But, when at north of, right at the wall, there's still tree line.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're at now, it's just fucking
snowy wilderness. Yeah, and it's harsh landscape.
Right.
And this is totally jumping ahead, but since we're on the subject of Beyond the Wall, how about that fucking ending of this season?
Oh, with the fucking white walkers.
I forgot. I totally forgot of that. Like, I never remember that being a thing, but I just figured that was later in the show. And
why would they ignore him?
I don't know. I feel like
because of his cowardice?
I don't know. Maybe that I wondered that I feel like almost certainly they have to pick that up in season 3, and I honestly don't know the answer if they do. But I feel like that I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question.
I don't know.
Because I feel like they have to pick that back up or address it in some way. So we might get an explanation of some sort. I just don't recall what happens, and even if I did, I wouldn't say as much here. But I legitimately just don't recall.
Right?
I don't know. That's the joy of rewatching this. Is like,
yeah,
what the fuck's gonna happen?
It has to be revisited though, because surely they would fucking just swarm him.
Yeah, but that was pretty wild. I enjoy that. I enjoy that they lean into the fantastical elements, not too much, but just enough to tease you of just like, you got your Game of Thrones bullshit happening, back in King's Landing, and Stannis the Manus is squabbling with, Joffrey for the throne and all
blah,
that.
Blah, 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 blah,
But really, there's a greater threat lurking beyond.
I enjoyed the symmetry. The first episode started with the Citadel sending a white dove or whatever, signifying that the winter's summer's ended and winter's begun.
Right. Yeah.
And the season ends with
winter's coming.
Winter's fucking
winter
coming.
is fucking coming.
You got these undead White Walker
right,
people.
Yeah. No, that's a good touch. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Very good touch. But yeah, good stuff. Samwell. We like Samwell. We got an introduction to Gilly.
Yeah, Gilly.
Yeah. Craster's a fuck, man. Got it. We talk about this all the time when we're talking amongst ourselves. There's so many shits on the show.
There's a lot of shits.
There's a lot of shits. Craster's another one. Man, God, there's too many to name. There's really too many to name.
It's interesting that that Lord Commander Mormont says that his misgivings as a terrible person are forgiven because he gives Rangers refuge beyond the wall. But at the same time, he's fueling the fucking monsters that are going to be attacking the wall at the same time. You know what I mean? I think it's a really interesting dynamic. It's one of those things. To what ends do you, and I think that's a perpetual theme throughout the show. To what ends do you let things go? Does it make sense? Am I making sense? I've had a couple of this Game of Thrones wine. I feel like I'm...
No, we're doing good. We're doing all right here. You can blame it on the wine, but no, we're knee deep in conversation. That's quite all right.
It looks like you need more wine.
More wine. Wine. Well, I never say no to more wine.
You can continue discussion while I pour this wine.
So, so we talked about Stannis a little bit. I got to give a special shout out. I don't have much to say other than I really fucking like this character. Even if you don't like Stannis for his corruption, you got to love Davos Seaworth, the fucking Onion Knight, who I think is one of the best new characters in this season, particularly. He's kind of that. He's the straight man,
right?
And Stannis' crew. He's the one that kind of he's the moral beacon. He's the one kind of being the voice of reason as much as possible. Be like, I know you like your Lord of Light and the Red Woman and all that, but hey, I saw some freaky deaky shit, and I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll follow you. I respect you, but don't let this define you kind of thing. And Davos is the man.
And
I think
Stannis recognizes that. He recognizes that moral compass. Even it's almost as if Stannis knows he's falling. He's I don't know. He's
right.
Almost there's almost I don't know, there's almost a parallel. I just thought about this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's almost a parallel between Stannis' character and Theon. Where they find their duty almost corrupts them to a point where they're very questionable people. You have Theon who kills his own brother, and then you have Theon who kills those fucking kids, and hangs them up and takes his own home, and just a bunch of questionable things. It's like, to what end do you owe that duty?
And when they're called out on it, they recognize it for what it is, and then they still press forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm too far gone. Is what Theon says. I'm too far gone to pretend like I'm anything else.
Yeah. You know who's a real shit this season?
Who's that?
Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah, no, Theon Greyjoy is a yes. Without a doubt, one of the shittiest.
Oh, man.
His descent happens so quickly, too.
Yeah, again,
he's a borderline likable character at the end of season 1.
Yeah, throughout all of season 1, and I guess you don't really totally fully understand the dynamics of like why he's in the Stark household. I mean, you get enough. He talks about his father here and there, but it's not until I think you get fully invoked into the Iron Islands here in season 2 with Yara and Balon Greyjoy.
The fucking guy.
We do not sow. Yeah. I mean, we see the Greyjoys for who they really are, and Theon. And
it's not that they're bad, because even his sister recognizes her dad as a shit.
Yeah. She's a good reconciliation of her dad being a kind of a lunatic, and one that basically was the reason that Theon's elder brothers both got killed in a stupid rebellion. And she's why Theon himself was stuck with the Starks for so long and such. And she's non-apologetic about her people's ways, because it's her people. Right, that's what I'm saying. But she reconciles that with the fact that the people of the Iron Islands are stuck in their ways, have their own ways, their unique ways, and she still revels in that and thrives in that without taking it to the extremes that cost them, in that way with their little stupid rebellion back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, and I like Yara quite well, actually. I think she's a nice character, and one that always kind of points out the fact that Theon's kind of a shit. It's just like, look, like we talked about, like, Theon is too far gone. It's just like, it's like he has to prove himself so much that he, instead of taking the little farmer town or whatever the hell he was supposed to do, he's like, I'm gonna fucking take Winterfell.
Right.
Like that's his big fucking grand plan, and we see obviously by the end what a great plan it was. But even Yara, like, when she's coming in, she's like, "You dumb motherfucker!" Like, that's kind of like her attitude.
Come home
towards
with
him.
me. Come home with me, please.
Yeah.
You're my last brother. Come home. He doesn't come home. He doesn't want to go home. He's got something to prove to his dad. And it's I don't know. It's
an interesting arc for Theon, because as you mentioned, he's a likable character through season 1, and then here he's a sympathetic character through season 2. Like he to an extent, yeah.
He does a lot of questionable things, but you understand why he's doing them. He especially when he's talking to Maester Luwin, listen, you don't know what it feels like to be, to hear that your captors have treated you so well. Right? So does he owe allegiance to his captors? Oh, they fucking kidnapped him from his dad, It's a hard thing to fucking grapple with, really. And I don't know, but at the same time, Robb respects him as his brother almost, So it's just he's an understandable character. I could understand his.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's
he does some really shitty things.
Yeah, he does some pretty heinous things, and I guess
and he's not likable at all.
We talked about
really.
Stannis, So I feel like Stannis, because of his authoritarian kind of character, the way he's such a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like I respect Stannis in this world of people, like,
who don't give a shit about anything.
Yeah, like your little fingers, your fucking little fingers, like in this world of people like that, Stannis is he tells you what the fuck is up, and I'm like, I
respect it.
I respect that. Yeah, questionable fucking decisions, at best. Speaking mildly,
he becomes a slave to his shit, and he becomes a monster. I think that's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
just like fucking Theon Greyjoy.
Well, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, he owns allegiance to his father, but he becomes a fucking piece of shit.
Right, it's like in such an effort to prove himself a man, to prove himself, the Greyjoy, like even his own people, like every moment they just scoff at him. They're just like, fuck this guy. Like, he's not one of us.
Right.
And that just almost prompts him to basically
do more outrageous shit.
Yeah. And I mean, he burns some kids alive. Well, I don't know if they're alive, but he killed some kids and then burns them
chop off one of their arms.
And it's just like, yeah, I don't know if you can really come back from that either.
What are you doing, dude?
I mean, his only respite from, courtesy of Maester Luwin was like, go take the black. They'll forgive what you've done. Like it wasn't like a go home kind of thing. It was just like, nah, you've really fucked it this time.
Yeah, you need to go exile
You have
yourself.
but one option. So
that's it.
Yeah. I mean, he is a sympathetic character to an extent, but yeah, when he doubles down on everything, you're just like, nope, fuck him. That's kind of. I think that's kind of where you end the season with Theon is, nope, nah, I'm good.
Don't give a shit.
Yeah. So
high points of this season, I would like to say, we can carry this to another place. I've said it multiple times to you personally, is the interactions between Arya Stark and Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, I really, really like what they did with those two characters. Tywin, again, as we definitely talked about on season 1, his introduction was fucking awesome. But Tywin's another Stannis type character for me. I mean, obviously, he's not corrupted by the Lord of Light, but he's a guy that gets shit done.
That's right.
He's straight to the point. He doesn't fuck around, and he calls you out on your shit. And that I like that about Tywin. Mm-hmm. Even if I'm not rooting for the Lannisters as a watcher of the show, I really fucking respect Tywin.
Now here's the question:
as the patriarch of his family.
If you didn't have fucking Joffrey, and you didn't have Cersei being just stupid pieces of shit, is that not hard to fucking root for Tywin?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big if, because you're taking out a
lot of shit, right? But at the same time, Tywin's not. He doesn't seem like a bad dude.
No, like I think he can be a prick, but like I think he talks so much about legacy. That's his thing, is like what I leave for my children and the children's children, and like that's Tywin in a nutshell, is like is about doing something so that he will be remembered, so that he sets the foundation for everyone else. Whereas like I feel like Joffrey and Cersei are just like up their own asses that's pretty much all it is for them, and
his family's all a piece of shit, but he I don't know, he seems like he's not necessarily, he's a very authoritative, is that a word? Authoritarian?
Yeah.
He's very authoritarian, but I
feel like they're both words, but it's fine. Either way,
it's totally
we're
fine.
Gonna
Whatever.
Go with it. The wine. Remember the wine.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, really, really like his character.
Yeah, I agree. So I think this was part of your question. Like, if we got rid of the the biggest shits in the family, and even Jaime's big of a shit too. We haven't talked about Jaime at all.
He has room for growth.
Mostly been shitting himself in prison. I feel like, well, I think by virtue of the fact that he hasn't been active in the politicking of this season, it's hard to say anything more about his character other than he was a prick in the first season, and
he's done shitty things in this season.
Yeah, quite literally.
Right.
I like Tywin. I mean, if it wasn't for Tywin, I could easily just write off House Lannister as the fucking worst. I mean, I guess they probably still are the worst overall.
Oh, by far.
But they got Tyrion too, because Tywin and Tyrion.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the teas. It's all about the teas and the T Lannisters. That's what it's about. Yeah, I mean, I like Tywin a lot. I think ultimately what this stemmed from was the Tywin and Arya interactions.
That's right.
Which I believe were additions to the show, not in the book. IIRC, which for the kids at home that don't understand means if I recall correctly. So I think that was kind of added on to have them kind of interact, and that was if I'm correct in that was a great fucking choice.
Yeah,
because they had great kind of chemistry working together. All the Harrenhal scenes were really interesting, I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Very interesting setting, obviously, kind of the way it's kind of fucked up by dragons and stuff and the past and the way that it's,
Were they in Harrenhal in the book? I can't remember.
I think so, but I just don't think there was any direct interactions between those two characters, like certainly not to the extent that there was in the show. But it was really smart to kind of, I think, do it in that way, because it gives Arya a lot of play and it gives Tywin a lot of play, and two characters that are fucking great sharing the screen together. Two characters you wouldn't expect to share the screen together in any sort of way like this. It's really interesting, and we see Arya like being super clever, which is great for her character, and Tywin's just lamenting the fact that everyone around him is a bunch of
bunch of fucking morons.
Bunch of fucking morons, exactly.
That's it, yeah.
And he's just like, we're losing this fucking war because you guys suck at everything. And, if there was 1,000,000 to me, then we'd have already won this fucking war.
Yeah,
but,
well, and it adds a lot of depth to his character, too. Why he does what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And, he there's a fucking slave in his captivity, and he, why don't you eat? Let me feed you, and let's have a conversation. And I don't know. It becomes gray. He becomes a gray character.
You could see that he respects intelligence, and probably when he's most frustrated by the lack of it around him.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
He recognizes. Well, I mean, you could see that Tywin is as sharp as they come immediately, and he's just like, "You idiots! This one's a girl," like right off the bat, he's just like as soon as he comes into Harrenhal, and prior to that, everyone's just been getting fucking tortured by the Mountain and Company, and it's just like,
what the fuck are you
doing?
Like,
he's like, who are my fucking bannermen? Like, what are you guys even fucking doing here? Like, what are we accomplishing right now? Is like, you could be fucking putting these people to labor, or you can just hang them up and fucking torture them. Yeah, that's a brilliant fucking idea. Yeah, Tywin's awesome. I think.
I think my favorite moment of Tywin is at the last. Listen, my favorite episode. We're gonna jump ahead here. I'm gonna jump ahead and just declare my favorite episode is Blackwater, just because it's incredible.
Okay.
But the last episode is fucking incredible as well, just for different reasons. It just ties everything up in a unique way. Mm-hmm. But Tywin literally, he fucking walks through the castle with his fucking horse taking a shit.
Yeah.
His horse takes a shit, and then he walks into the throne room on the back of his horse to collect the pin for the hand of the king, and then he just turns around and fucking rides his horse out. Thank you, bye, and just fucking walks out. But I don't think you get more ballin' than fucking Tywin Lannister.
I just checked, and I can confirm. Pretty fucking ballin'.
Pretty fucking
ballin'. Yeah. It's pretty legit. It's pretty legit. But let's talk about Arya. Who?
Yeah.
I guess we could talk maybe about the Starks in general too, because there's still a few of them left over.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Jon, who's not quite a Stark, but close enough, I suppose.
Yeah. No.
Arya, who she's been airy for a little bit. You said we kind of see. We see her being her clever self, and it's really interesting to see her kind of... I don't know, it's interesting to see all the Starks kind of playing the game in their own way. Because Arya is, effectively... I mean, she's literally fucking a cupbearer for Tywin motherfucking Lannister, and she gets away with it. That's pretty legit.
Yeah, no.
Sansa is, still a member of the court, still, for the most of the season, betrothed to Joffrey and subject to his bullshit. She almost gets fucking raped and potentially killed, before she's saved by the Hound. Like, Sansa goes through the fucking ring yet again. Does. She saw her fucking, dad get beheaded before her, and now she's a fucking jester for Joffrey to play with, like, effectively.
Her character, I like to try to keep everything contained within a bubble. But her character becomes someone to be feared and respected by the, she's got a tremendous character growth.
And it begins here.
It does begin here. Well, it begins at season 1. I mean, but season 1, she's captive. You know, I mean, she's still captive.
And this is her coming to terms with it, and you know, it starts to bubble to the surface, and you see her kind of making some snide comments here and there, and then it's like, I love Prince Joffrey so much,
right?
You know, but it really, you see her assimilating to what she needs to be to survive, to play, to survive the Game of Thrones,
right?
You know, and Arya wasn't the type cut out for that shit, but she does it in her own way. You know, you know, she does it in a very different way, to, you know, by being in, you know, I guess in some ways they're both in plain sight, but, you know, they kind of have their own ways of grappling with their situations and fighting through them. And it's interesting, you know, and Bran kind of, you know, he's trying to be the Lord of Winterfell, but that obviously comes to a pretty quick end at the hands of one shit named Theon Greyjoy, and we see, you know, again, it's very much a middle chapter of sorts for all these characters. Of like, clearly there's things to come on the back end of it, but this is building the foundation for where their characters could grow into. You know, so Bran,
harrowing journey for sure.
So this is Bran getting. I mean, obviously now he was paralyzed. Now he's getting knocked off his pedestal at Winterfell, and it's really kind of, you know, seeing people for who they can be.
Now he's on the fucking run. God, I think that last episode I got teary-eyed, I think like 3 or 4 times.
You were getting a little emotional over there. I heard some sniffles.
I was sniffling. You know, when he has to leave his home and Mr. Lewin fucking kicks the bucket, he's dying, and they see Winterfell on fire, and they're just head north to Jon. Jon's beyond the wall fighting
well, they don't know that.
They don't know that, but I mean, that's what's going on. And the little lords have suffered enough. God damn it, they've suffered enough. They're just 2 little kids. Just 2 little kids. They don't even have a home anymore. It's so sad. God damn, it's so sad. Oh.
Yeah. And you know, like I said, it's setting the foundation like this. It makes you want to go back to season 1 and go back to episode 1. Starks were just so fucking happy at Winterfell until King Bobby B came along. He's like,
B.
I want you to be hand of the king, Ned. Bow your shits.
Yeah.
Bow your king.
That's it.
And aspiring Lancel, let us
Lancel.
Gods, what a stupid.
Let's talk about Lancel. Lancel's sleeping with Cersei.
Yeah.
And
God, he
gets shot in the shoulder.
He is prime shit in fucking season 2. God.
And Cersei fucking punches him in that shoulder where he got shot.
I fucking lost it. It was hilarious. He fell back like 50 feet.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't think they could craft just a more
shitty fucking dude. He's a fucking.
I can't think they couldn't have crafted a character more worthy of King Bobby B's insults. I think from season 1, just the way he got berated was just, you know, in retrospect, that I'm like, he deserved every word of it. He deserved every word of it. Yeah.
Tell you somebody else who's worthy of talking about too is the one that saves Tyrion. Podrick, yes.
His squire, Mr. Podrick Payne.
Yeah, so Podrick Payne comes out of nowhere, but he's oddly just really good to Tyrion. I don't know where he comes from.
Yeah, that's a good, because he's kind of a squire, but when did they? I don't remember. Did they explain in the show like when he becomes Tyrion's squire?
No, I feel like
it just kind of happens, right?
When he becomes the hand of the king, he gets that squire, you know. And they form a unique bond, and on the battlefield, the fucking guy, that really shithead piece of shit, tries to chop up Tyrion. He fucking runs that lance through the back of his head.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. That guy I feel like he kind of unceremoniously gets offed. I kind of wish there was just more attention to that piece of shit getting knocked off, because I really, really dislike that dude. The dude that slashes Tyrion.
I mean, he gets a fucking spear through his face.
He does get a spear through his face, but it was kind of like, spear through your face, it's done. Boom.
I mean, it looked pretty painful to me.
It did look pretty painful, I guess, but
I mean, he ain't around much longer after that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So.
I guess, but I don't know. That guy was a big piece of shit.
Well, Game of Thrones is not the type of show to typically give you the feel good moments. There's a few here and there, sometimes, but not often.
Not often.
They're far and few between, I would say. So, last Stark. We got one more Stark to talk about. The King in the North.
The King in the North.
Robb
yeah, he
Stark.
fucks his bowels. What? He fucks his vowels? Vowels?
Yeah, his vow to he's betrothed to one of Walder Frey's beautiful children, and he meets Lady Talisa Maguire from Volantis. He's enchanted by her, her healing powers.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's not wrong.
Volantis Bay, but he's
Volantis
definitely
Bay, yes, it has been coined.
he is definitely he's not following his father's suit by his word, his oaths, and I fear that may come back to haunt him. But currently he seems to be living it up, with the exception of his mother going against his word. And
yeah. I mean, he's enjoying quite a few victories
Right.
as the King in the North. Things seem to be going pretty swimmingly, aside from that one little thing of the Kingslayer no longer being in
he captures the
captivity.
Kingslayer, and then his mom lets him go.
Yeah, and so that brings us to Brienne of Tarth as well. So this is our introduction to Brienne, who we see her fighting in the tournament for Renly, becomes part of his Kingsguard, and well, that's a short-lived occupation. And so she comes into Lady Catelyn's service, and she's the one that is entrusted with escorting Jaime Lannister back to King's Landing, presumably in exchange for Sansa and Arya, as far as Catelyn is concerned. And
So far as Littlefinger has told her, anyways, he knows that Arya's not there.
Well, we know that Littlefinger is also another one of the prime shits in Game of Thrones.
He is a very secretive piece of shit.
He's definitely a shit. So Brienne and the Kingslayer, and Catelyn. I mean, all interesting decisions, because Catelyn seems like she spends a lot of the season trying to negotiate terms amongst different things. She actually warns Robb against sending Theon out to Balon Greyjoy. She's like, you can't fucking trust a Greyjoy. And lo and behold, she was right. But she does make, obviously, her decision to, I think, release Lannister. It's somewhat motivated by the fact that, this guy's going to be dead within a fortnight if I don't do this. But it's also motivated by the fact that I think she's like, I want my fucking daughters back. So I think there's a bit of both kind of going into it. But it's really interesting. Because I feel like Brienne's arc, as we talked about, especially we see just kind of, Brienne's loyalty is seriously not to be trifled with.
No,
as we see,
yeah,
I guess that last episode there, yeah. And what do you think about? I mean, I guess we talked a little bit about Jaime already. We talked very briefly about Brienne, but how do you feel those
Brienne,
two characters independently together? Whatever.
I think that, I don't know, their journey is definitely worth. I think their journey is going to be an interesting one. Not that I would know.
I mean, I don't know. Would you?
But
there's no way to know.
There's no way to know what happens. But I do find Brienne very interesting. I find that I think their dynamic's really good. It's like a little symmetry kind of deal. It's like a yin and yang, if you will. You have somebody like Jaime who's very capable and very entitled to his position, and then you have Brienne, who has been shit on her entire life because of her natural born position. And that dynamic is very interesting. I think that's gonna develop the two moving forward. I think that her unflinching loyalty is another symmetry compared to Jaime's. And I think you couldn't match that. I don't know. Do the two travel together in the books?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's a really interesting choice because I do feel like they're two different sides of the same coin. And by literally every aspect, I feel like they're I don't know, and I think that helps both of them grow in a very meaningful way. That's my 2 cents on those two people.
Maybe we'll have more to talk about in future episodes. Who's to say? There's no way to know. There is again no way to know.
Maybe.
So we're gonna clean up a little bit here. There's not too many other characters to talk about, but we haven't said a word about
Joffrey.
We've said a lot about Joffrey.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. Anyways, who were you talking about?
We haven't said a lot about Jaqen Hagar.
Oh,
the faceless man.
Yeah.
Falar Mogulis.
Yeah.
Jaqen is fucking cool. He's one of the
cool
coolest
dude.
fucking characters, probably in this entire series. If I make such a bold statement,
He's pretty cool.
he's pretty cool. Yeah. The intrigue here, the Red God and trading lives and stuff like that. I don't know. I find the mythos behind Jaqen very interesting, and even just the last moment when he fucking turns around and fucking has a different face on.
Yeah.
Just like, what the fuck just happened? Because we again we get elements of the fantastical here. They don't totally shy away from that, but it's not the focal point of this show. But when it does happen, it kind of it gives you pause.
It piques
You're just
your
like,
interest. Yeah.
what the fuck's going on with this? I'd like to know more about this.
Right.
And there's different aspects. I love the way that they blend all of those aspects together. I mean, obviously the White Walkers are kind of okay, there's some serious shit going on out there. The dragons,
But it's hidden away
are out
behind
there.
a fucking giant ass wall.
But Jaqen, just this chance encounter between Arya, or is it a chance encounter? I don't even know.
He might be Serial Pharrell.
Could be. It's a very valid theory according to the book readers, but probably not so much for the show watchers. But
Who's to say?
well, there's no way to know. We haven't watched all the seasons of Game of Thrones. We actually do not know. That's true. So there is no way to know. But there's the masked woman and Karth.
Yeah, okay.
She's got some weird shit going on, so Jaqen's pretty cool, and I like that they give you just the taste of the weird to be like, oh, I remember there's a little bit of weird in here, and then I have to have, I almost feel like that's what motivates me, like when I see Joffrey just being an absolute piece of shit, and I'm like, oh god, I have to deal with Joffrey for another 2 minutes of the scene. It's like, I know that there's some other shit going on. Right? I know that it's all building to something.
Right.
It's a slow burn in some ways, and sometimes the action is in the forefront. Blackwater, obviously it's a whole episode of just this fucking massive
People
action
getting
set
cleaved
piece.
in half and
People getting literally cleaved in half. I forgot how violent that was as a side note. Guy's head gets chopped clean in half by Stannis, I think.
Yeah, Stannis chops top
Impressive.
of his head off.
We had a somewhat discussion about the force required to be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
We shan't repeat it here, but
It's
needless to
extensive.
say, there's probably a lot required. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how they all kind of merge that, and I think we see a lot of that this season in particular with one character we've yet to discuss this entire episode, the Mother of Dragons, Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah. She sees some fantastical shit for sure.
Especially in that last episode, we get the reappearance of one Khal Drogo. Totally forgot that happened personally. I personally feel that the whole Karth storyline, for me, is a bit of a misfire. Overall,
No, I totally agree with it. I think it was elaborated a lot more in the books.
yeah, I think just the way that it's depicted it's overlong, and it really accomplishes very little overall other than to fill time for me. The one thing I liked about it, and again, most of the stuff I totally forgot. I remember most of the season, but I fucking forgot about Daenerys other than the fact that she was in Karth. I was like, I know there's some warlock and some weird shit happens, but I don't remember anything beyond that. And I feel like it's not a terribly memorable arc for her in general, but I did like how she was going through the snowy throne room and the visit with Khal Drogo and
What'd
her.
you take away from that experience?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's intended to be the warlock fucking with her. I mean, it seemed like it was a lot of her projecting, of her desires in some ways, to some extent, because it seems like it's not entirely like there's some of her misgivings kind of still present, like the fact that the throne room is like it's snowing in there. Like that's
it's
a weird,
torn apart.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. That's kind of in that, like even just some of her interactions with Khal Drogo, or some of it's just like, well, you're not real, you can't be your type thing. But it's also kind of just, I don't know. There's
when the sun sets in the west.
Yeah, there's some weird things happening. So I don't know that I fully understood it. And I liked all of that. Like I said, that's kind of weird, like the weird shit happening. Like I liked that, and the Warlock, the Blue Lips guy, like, you know, it's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a little bit more interesting than the well, you're not going to be doing it with my ships.
The fucking sausage man,
Jimmy
Dean,
Spice King, Jimmy Dean. You know, like, you know, most of the Carthians are just uppity assholes, and like not in like a interesting
I thought
way.
that the story to be told between her and the dude with the necklace.
Yes, that's a man. Zaro
Dexus or whatever.
Daxos. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I definitely remembered his name, and I did not look at the list for that. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's her story is slow. I think it is. I vividly remember the House of the Undying. I remember that scene. But aside from that, her whole experience in Karth is pretty forgettable, I think.
Where are my dragons?
Yeah. But does...
They were in the House of the Undying.
Like I said last time, I think that her experience is largely, if you view them at the micro level, I think that they're largely just kind of, they seem like they would be dismissible. I mean, they're characterized by large points and exciting things, but largely they're very they're season-wide events, and they seem like they would be slightly less important than what they really are. But as a whole, I think her experiences are very, very important. I think this experience that she has in Karth is incredibly important because it tells the nature of people, largely in a way that she hasn't experienced before. You have people that may seem to they might seem to shower you with respect and everything else, but at the end of the day, their claims are empty. And they might have alternative motives, and I think that kind of throws her. But I don't know. It matures her character in a large way. Like she tells that guy before she locks him in the safe, thank you for your experience, you know. And
yeah, I mean, she's definitely playing the long game.
She's definitely playing the long game.
And yeah, I agree, but I find moment to moment, as I think I probably found in watching this for probably I think this might be the third or fourth time I've seen this season. I think it's just too long-winded in the way that it goes about it.
Long-winded. It
is.
is.
And there are episodes where Danny's not part of it, and that's probably a good choice, I think, structurally.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like there wasn't enough material for 10 episodes.
For her?
For her.
Yeah, well.
Overall, yeah, no, definitely there was enough material. Probably too much material for 10 episodes in a way, but yeah, I think season 1 is
like they're stuck in the goddamn
much
desert.
More compelling for Danny than it is here, and this you know, it is an interesting experience that she goes through, and yes, she does come out on the other side with an experience that I think helps informs her beliefs and her decisions and where she'll go from this point on. But I find moment to moment it's not overly compelling.
No, I totally understand it, totally get it.
So,
I do find the House of the Undying.
I like that.
This is very interesting.
I like that a lot. But there's not enough of that.
There's not enough of that. No, you're absolutely right.
I think if they leaned into that, like I liked with, Masked Woman, I liked that, and
you like the intrigue. There's a lot of intrigue.
I like the intrigue, but I needed more. I would say so.
So her character didn't do a whole lot. It doesn't, like I said, she normally. I feel like it's a case of, I don't know. I feel like a large portion of these seasons moving forward, it doesn't feel like a lot of major shit happens. It's not like a continuous thing, you know. It's this is what she's doing for the entire season, and this is the high point of that. And
she like comes away with a lesson or something like that. It's kind of almost
right.
The way it feels is like this is how this is informing me in this particular way, and I will take this moving forward, and that will somehow be helpful in the future. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it on future episodes, won't we?
And I feel like her character, I don't know, it's like a long game character, like you said, you know? And I don't...
It's not a bad thing, especially when we're doing this whole thing.
It's just a different thing.
We're playing the long game and watching all these fucking seasons.
Right.
Because we know it builds to
you have a season-long character that's doing this thing, right? And then minute by minute, you have these other characters, which I think is a unique way to do it, because they you know, like you said, she didn't pop up for a couple of episodes, you know, and she's very much a series piece versus necessarily a season-to-season piece. So
in a way, they actually kind of address this head on in the show, where Varys kind of mentions offhand to Tyrion is just like, Daenerys Targaryen is still alive, and he's just like, we'll deal with that shit later. You know,
right.
Like, you know, they kind of really just like, well,
exactly,
one thing at a time, you know.
And while this force slowly builds, so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it is interesting, and there's a lot of interesting things that happen in season 2. I feel like we've kind of hit the head on a lot of the characters. I don't, Marjorie. We didn't talk about Marjorie. She's, you know, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than she wants to be queen. So good for her.
I can think of several things to say about Marjorie.
Well, perhaps you should reserve those for your brain.
She's definitely Queen Bey.
Queen Bey. I'll allow that comment.
Definitely
accepted for the record.
Like if somebody said, "Listen, I would like my sister to marry you." Okay, that's what I would say to Marjorie.
Well, thank you for your input on the matter. We were all very curious, and now the record has been satisfied.
Queen Marjorie. Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's it for season 2. I think I don't know what else to say about season 2.
I think that's about it. So, favorite episode. Your favorite episode is Blackwater.
Yeah.
You want to know something about me?
What's your favorite episode?
My favorite episode is Blackwater.
It's a close follow-up to the last episode, though. I struggled. Yeah, I struggled between choosing between those two episodes.
Blackwater, man, it's pure spectacle in a way.
It is,
but it fucking delivers on pure spectacle.
It does
in a big bad way. It's really, really great. I was looking forward to it because it's one of I think the most memorable. You know, like season 2 for me. There's a lot of things I think in the early seasons ish that blend. Like I remember certain moments. And Blackwater is a fucking moment that I'm like, that is the high water mark of season 2.
It was
I remember it as that. Whereas a lot of the other stuff is like, well, I know Renly's going to get got at some point. I know Stannis is going to storm fucking King's Landing, and well, I guess that was part of Blackwater. But you know, there's things that happen. Like I kind of vaguely like, oh, you know,
Blackwater is season 2.
Like that's when I think of season 2, and I'm like, that's the shit right there. Because a lot of the stuff continues to get built on. Like this sets the foundation for a lot of characters, the character arcs, pairing characters together, and then it builds on that in really interesting ways. But that this is like Stannis claiming the throne, and then it builds to this fucking thing, and it's really cool. It was really satisfying, and it felt like they really fucking nailed that.
It was really cool in the books too.
Mm-hmm. So who won the season? What do you think? I feel like we did both an individual and a house last time, so maybe we should stay thematically consistent with that if we can come to a decision. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
I feel like there's not
season's more difficult.
I don't know that there's a clear cut winner. Like
we know that it's not Theon Greyjoy. He gets fucking.
It's not Theon Greyjoy,
and we know that it's not Renly.
Because I feel like every character more or less has some sort of hardships that they encounter.
It's not at the end of the season. It's definitely not Tyrion. It's not him.
Right, and like you would think it's building to this point where like, oh, Tyrion won the fucking thing, and then he gets no fucking credit whatsoever for basically saving everyone's asses.
Listen, nobody's gonna sing your name in a song. You got your nose chopped off. You're fucking scarred for life. Everybody's gonna shit on you, and nobody knows that you are the real reason why everything still stands.
Right. Fucking shit.
Well, he's definitely not the winner.
Yeah, he's out. Right. The front runner just got fucking pushed out the door at the last minute.
Yeah, it's real shitty.
Real upset.
So I would probably say my I think my winner's probably going to be fucking. I really don't want to say it.
You don't want to say it, but
it's probably going to be fucking Joffrey. He's still sitting on that throne.
There's a very real. Yeah. I think I went with Joffrey last time, and I felt bad about it. I'm like, God, I can't give it to Joffrey again, can I?
And I'm going to give it to House Lannister.
Yeah. I think...
It could be. You could say if you're going to give it to a different house, there is an argument for... what's Marjorie's house? Tyrell. There is an argument for the Tyrells, because now they have...
They banded it with the Lannisters.
Now they have a foothold into the
That's a good call, actually.
So I would say probably
because really the
Joffrey won, and then House Tyrell has gained an entry point.
The Tyrells have really suffered no losses whatsoever, other than like Loras lost his lover and Renly, and that's somewhat of a blow, I think. But
as a house, though,
right? You look at it in the macro level. They basically said they didn't join Stannis. They said fuck Stannis. They left. Mm-hmm. And
they saved the day.
Marjorie is now betrothed to be queen. Yeah, I'm going to give it to House Tyrell. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to House Tyrell. I mean, so obviously Lannisters are sharing in the spoils there, but I'm going to give it to House Tyrell. I think that's a good call. I didn't think about that. But I'm going to, in the interest of not giving Joffrey a fucking win, because fuck Joffrey.
You would have to give him 2 wins in a row.
I'm going to give it to the King in the North.
Okay. All right.
Because he's seen nothing but victories, and he just got married to a nice you know
why I didn't say him? I'll tell you why I didn't say him. He has won nothing but victories. He has experienced no losses other than Jaime Lannister.
Other than Jaime. Yeah, that's a big one.
But his one foothold with the Lannisters is now gone. That's why I would give him he got betrayed by his mom. His mom let the fucking
yeah. His bargaining chip.
He has no bargaining chip now. Now he's just strictly warfare. That's all he's got.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't give it to him. I thought about that outside while I was smoking.
That's fair.
I can't give it to him. I want to give it to him. He married the woman of his dreams. He's happy.
I honestly think that perhaps Joffrey, in spite of not deserving it, probably feel like should be the de facto winner of it. But fuck Joffrey. I'm still going with the King of the North.
I understand.
I acknowledge the losses, and I acknowledge, but in terms of personal happiness, he's now married. They had an actual marriage ceremony in that last episode, so he's married to Volantis Bay, as we've now decided.
And she seems like a really good woman. She seems like an excellent woman.
And they obviously have a strong chemistry together, and he's doing pretty well for himself, as King in the North, fighting for his independence. So,
and I think House Tyrell's probably...
So in spite of some of those setbacks, I feel like it's nothing too backbreaking.
I think House Lannister is probably the clear winner, but House Tyrell is the up and coming. Yeah. House Tyrell has definitely secured a foothold in government politics.
Yeah. So let me ask you one last real important question.
Shit.
Season 1 or Season 2?
Season 2.
Really?
Season 2.
Okay. Interesting.
I say Season 2 because Season 2 did a really good job of Season 1 did an excellent job of establishing characters, establishing the fleshing out the world, and just character politics, if you will. I think character politics is what you can call it. Season 2 did an excellent job of injecting spectacle into an established world, and because at this point we had no spectacle. Now we have spectacle, we have heavy use of magic, we still have the politics, and now because we've had such exposure to all the characters, now we have heavy we have heavy establishment with all the characters. Like Mr. Lewin. When Mr. Lewin got stabbed in the stomach and, he got knocked off, that was really hard. You experience... Now we have 2 seasons of hardships with Bran. That's really hard. You have... What are you looking at? What are you seeing?
I was just admiring the imagery of you with your crooked hat just fucking waxing philosophical about Game of Thrones, and it just
what is
just
it
made me-
with my hat?
Your hat's just a little ajar on your head, on your little noggin. I don't know, just the imagery of it. I just took a step back and it was cracking me up.
I'm drinking the Game of Thrones wine. It's a hard time, man. There's a lot of hard shit that happens.
I didn't want to rain on your parade.
Don't rain on my parade.
I was hoping you wouldn't call me out on it.
No, I
but
called you out on it. You fuck.
you did. I'm sorry.
It's totally okay.
It just made me laugh.
So yeah, I think season two. Is a natural evolution of the characters, of the world. You now have spectacle in a series that up until this point didn't have any spectacle, and I think it does a good job of complexing. It does a good job of complexing the series in a good way. Putting gray areas in, like you say, with Stannis. Stannis is a character that stands for the good things, but you can't avoid the fact that he's perverted his principles. Same thing with a lot of the other characters. It's just I don't know. It complexes a lot of things, and I appreciate that complexity in the way that it's executed. That's what I would say about season 2. That's why I like season 2 more. Yeah.
Well, I like season 1 more.
Fuck yeah. Why?
I feel like season 2 for me sets the table for a lot of things, but it doesn't deliver on the interesting things necessarily. There's a lot of stuff in it that's pretty good. But I feel like season 1 feels like a really complete package for me.
Right.
Like, it really owns in on Ned. Ned is kind of your through line through everything, and like it really, really does a great job of kind of delivering, like, this is the world that you're now experiencing with Ned's rise and fall effectively.
Right.
Season 2 is interesting because it picks up the pieces from that and it builds on that in a really meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I feel like it's more just especially even the way that like season 2 ends, it's just like there's a lot of exciting shit to come, but we're not there yet. And I feel like season 1 for me ended in a pretty meaningful way, and it does a great job of establishing the dynamics and everything. And I feel like just as a show, as a TV show, across the board, it's more compelling to watch. Like I said, I pointed to Dany as a big weak point for season 2 for me in terms of her storyline. She's fucking way better in season 1. Not her as a character per se.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you with Dany.
Her storyline, and I feel like the storylines in general are more compelling overall in season 1. I feel like each character really has a point to be there, whereas Dany feels like we'll get to her eventually. And it feels like, well, we couldn't just drop her storyline kind of like things. Like we were building to something with her, and that's all well and good. But again, moment to moment, that feels lackluster to me. And
I feel like that's going to be a case with a lot of the seasons moving forward now.
Well, and I guess I didn't feel like aside from her, there was enough to, like Blackwater's fucking awesome. It's easily the most spectacle of anything we've seen. Like season 1 danced around that as much as they fucking could.
Sure, they didn't. Yeah.
Largely, I would imagine due to budgetary concerns, but also due to the fact that like the scale hadn't really been upped to that point really at any point in time, and for the most part in that. But I feel like season 1 really delivered on the character moments for me, for all the characters, and so that's kind of, I mean, there's very little separation between the two. I would say I feel like they're very close with each other, and I don't necessarily disagree with you in the sense that, like, I think it really just boils down to personal preference, and season 1 just has kind of a near and dear spot in my heart, I think, overall. And I feel like it, it's as much as season 2 sets the foundation for everything, season 1 does that as well, while being a complete arc for a lot of characters in some ways too.
Yeah, it's a very complete package.
Season 2, like I said, it's picking up the pieces, and I don't know that season 2 completes anyone's arc in any sort of real meaningful way.
No, in anything, it's
the middle chapter through. It's a middle chapter through and through, and it knows it is, and it works within those confines.
I think it closes the chapters of those characters at that point very well, but at the same time, it's very much an open-ended chapter.
Yeah. So anyway, This will get more interesting as we get into the later seasons where we replace them. We only had 2 to worry about this time, so more season rankings to come in our future episodes. And I think you can step on my toes if you feel so inclined, but I think that's it for season 2. Do you agree?
That's it.
That is it. Well, thank you all for listening to us talk about Game of Thrones yet again. We hope you've enjoyed what you heard, and in fact, if you have done so, we encourage you to spread the word. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter at WRRPod. We are on Facebook. Please like us at watchreviewrepeat. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, Game of Thrones related or not, please send those our way to our Gmail account at watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And, well, we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones a little bit more on our next bonus episode, as you might expect. Season 3, we've yet to start, but I have a good feeling about this season 3.
I have no idea what happens in season 3.
No idea whatsoever. Yeah.
No, I actually can't. You know, it's interesting. When you recall the series as a whole,
it is hard to kind of place where things happen,
especially when you're readily grinding through it. You know, I can't remember what happens where, and it's almost like I don't know, just creating new memories, if you will.
Well, we're going to create some new memories, and we're going to record on them, and it's going to be another Patreon exclusive. So thank you in particular to our Patreon supporters. If you're listening to this episode early, much obliged, and we hope you look forward to our next bonus episode on Game of Thrones Season 3. And of course, before that releases, we of course hope you enjoy whatever regular episodes we have coming out. And we will leave you with that. So thank you again. And I guess that's going to be it.
Take care now. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Valar Morghulis.